Let's face it, chess is tough, and sometimes the difference between winning the game and losing it is due to some small details that you don't even notice while playing. It's called chess understanding, exchanging the right pieces, developing the pieces to the right squares, endgame technique, things like that. So today I want to share with you the games that I have played recently in a tournament, explain you the whole decision-making process. The endgame was literally incredible when I had a bishop against 3 pawns, so it's gonna definitely boost your chess understanding. Let's get started. Hi guys, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every aspect of your chess game. So I played this game as black and I played the Sicilian defense. I'm trying to experiment with openings. It's a new opening for me, a very complicated one, but I guess you have to experiment to learn new types of positions. It's very important. It reaches your overall chess understanding. So even though I often get into trouble because I'm not an expert in theoretical lines on a high level in this opening, but I still learn a lot in the process. So knight c6 I played here, and bishop b5. Of course, the main line is d4, but bishop b5 is a very playable and popular choice. So I played e6, and I want to bring my knight to e7 and defend this knight on c6 with a knight. And of course, here is the only moment when white can take this knight and destroy my pawn structure. But the main line is here castles, and that's what my opponent did. So I played knight e7, used this chance, and now once I'm playing a6, I can just take it back with a knight. So that is what happened, rook e1, a6, and bishop f1. So far, that's the main line. Here I played b6. The main line is d5, immediately trying to fight for the center, but, well, I have tried this move because I want to develop my bishop there, and d5 is still there on my agenda. My opponent played d4 immediately, which was already a surprise for me, although seems like the most logical move, but somehow I expected c3 instead. d4 takes, and here I came up with a very interesting idea which turns out to be completely wrong objectively, but, well, I thought I want to try it. e5. So I want to attack this knight, and it's a pretty normal idea in a lot of variations in the Sicilian defense, but in this position concretely, it doesn't work, apparently because I'm just not enough for it. I have too many weaknesses here, and white can just play knight f3, and somehow it's very difficult for me to deal with all of the problems along the d-file and all of the weaknesses on the dark squares. But my opponent played knight b3, also a very strong move, and I just played g6. I wanted to fianchetto my bishop, make the castles, play bishop b7, and somehow be very active in the center, and eventually, of course, play d5. But, well, that's only my plan. The reality is that my opponent is not allowing me to play that because he's developing the pieces fast. The bishop comes out, the knight comes out. I play castles, and now queen to d6. Just shutting down the whole activity, and it's very difficult for me to somehow deal with it. But, well, that's the way you learn in the process when you get into difficult positions and then you find a way to come out of it. That's very useful in terms of your chess growth. I played here h6. First, I want to push this bishop back, or maybe bishop f6 was also possible, but then I also had some ideas like taking it. Then the d-file is suddenly open, so I have the move d6, rook to d1, and bishop e6 blocking this queen. So I thought, well, here I'm not that bad, I have some ideas. But instead, my opponent just played bishop to e3 back, keeping an eye on the b6 pawn, but that gives me some chances to create a counterplay. That is exactly what I need, because remember, if you are staying too passive, eventually the opponent will come after you and you're gonna lose the game. I played f5, f3, a very important moment here, because otherwise I want to play f4 and this bishop has to go back. That would be unfortunate for white. f3 has been played. Now just king to h7, making sure that I step away from all of the checks, all of the difficulties. Normally that's always a good move. Rook a to d1. Notice that my opponent is developing all of the pieces now, just getting ready to crush me. But I had an idea. I played here rook to f6, pushing the queen back, and then I somehow have more space. So queen to d2 and d6. My pawn on d6 is weak, but it's protected, and I want to finally finish my development somehow. I don't know, something like that. a4 has been played immediately, and I played here rook to b8, trying to support this pawn once again. Bishop to f2, because, well, queen to f2 would have been an idea, for example, after bishop b7, and then my pawn is in trouble. So that is why I played rook to b8. queen to c7, and now bishop to h4. I didn't really understand the point of this whole thing because I wanted to play g5 and f4 on my own, so here I achieved that, but apparently the point is that now light squares are very weak for me, and my opponent uses it immediately, playing knight to d5, a very strong idea, exchanging the knights, because basically that was a fork. Once I go away, I was pretty optimistic about this position, but bishop d3 is a very annoying resource for white. Because now king h8, like if I play bishop to f5, you can just exchange it, and then the queen will come to d3, pinning the knight, attacking the pawn, and even though it's not a big deal, but it felt unpleasant. So I played here instead king h8 to avoid all of the difficulties, but now queen to e2, and suddenly there is this queen e4 idea in the air, threatening a checkmate. I played bishop to d7, knight to d2, so bishop a6 was possible here, but my opponent decided to relocate the knight first, and it's also a very interesting idea, very good executed here. Rook to f8, I didn't want to lose a tempo after knight e4 somehow, so I went back. Bishop takes a6, and yeah, basically now winning a pawn, although the engine doesn't really like it. Instead, c4 could have been a very dangerous move, because for black, the problem is I don't really have a lot of active opportunities. And remember, having active opportunities, it's very important in chess. If I take this pawn on a4, then this problem is very important, what I have mentioned before. Queen to e4, threatening checkmate in one, and if I block it, somehow the knight is now pinned, basically. It can go anywhere, and then the pawn might come, like I can take en passant, of course, but the second pawn will come too. It's really not that pleasant for me. My opponent took on a6, I took on a4, and b3 happened. So I went back, this time to e8, because I thought, well, the bishop can still go this way, and here I have a little bit more space for my pieces, like queen can go to d8 and still protect the pawn, unlike with the bishop on d7. My opponent played queen to c4, offering the queen's exchange, and of course, I don't want to trade the queens in such a situation with so many weaknesses, so I'm stepping back, knight e4, and you can notice that here it matters that my bishop is not on d7 because the pawn on d6 is still protected. I played b5 here, threatening the queen, queen to b4, and at first I felt like rook b6 is winning here because the bishop is trapped. If you take it, I'm taking it back with a check, and then I'm grabbing another bishop, and of course the position is completely winning. But what I haven't realized first, and thank God I have seen it before making a move, that there is queen to a5 pinning my rook, and then I'm completely lost. So I haven't played that. I have played knight to f5 instead, and I just wanted to block this whole diagonal altogether, maybe sacrifice a pawn, I don't care about that, but I wanted to really get to this diagonal. So rook a1 happened, and I just played knight e3. Takes, now a forcing variation leading to an endgame, queen takes d6, queen takes, knight takes, and now I have this powerful resource, because otherwise it seems like I'm completely lost here in terms of positional situation and in terms of material. A lot of pawns are hanging, but I played e4, opening up this diagonal and attacking the f3 pawn at the same time. A very crazy position appears on the board. Rook went back to d1, I took on f3, takes back, and I played here bishop h5. It felt incredibly logical, because the bishop was under attack, kind of, and now the bishop is very active, and I'm threatening rook b6, winning one of the pieces. But in fact, what was even stronger, maybe you can pause the video for a second and try to find it before I show you the answer. Okay, hopefully you did it. So the move is rook to b6 immediately. And the point is, suddenly the bishop has no moves. Even if you exchange, I just take it back, and then the bishop is trapped. You can't go to a1 because the bishop is still controlling that square. Otherwise, the bishop and the game is pretty much lost for white. So that would have been a very nice opportunity for me. I have played bishop h5, which felt very logical because the bishop is active, rook b6 is coming. My opponent took on e3, rook to b6, but now suddenly I realize that it's not that simple, because my opponent is getting a great number of pawns, 3 connected passers here for the bishop. So that is pretty scary. I mean, if those pawns are running, you're in trouble. So my opponent played king to g2, just defending the pawn, g4, takes, and bishop e2. And that was a critical moment in the game, because it was move 41, so we have reached the time increment. Until the move 40, we were both in time trouble. That was very difficult to handle. But now we could settle down, and I needed to decide whether I need to exchange those bishops or not. You can pause the video and write in the comments whether you think that you should exchange the bishop or you should keep it. So I thought that I should exchange it because, well, then I have more activities and only me who has a bishop here, a minor piece, so I can use it somehow to be active along the diagonals. But the right thing was to step back. What I didn't like about it is that the bishop would be somehow very active here. I mean, of course, not blundering the pawn, but then the bishop will come to f3, would control everything, and then those pawns will just run. They would be very fast, and I'm going to be busted. But actually, the computer disagrees with me altogether. He's saying that after c4, I have rook to g6, king goes back, and then somehow bishop to c2, attacking here the rook and the pawn, and yeah, somehow rook a8. I mean, that is very difficult to understand, but there are some back rank problems, and yeah, unfortunately, I haven't spotted that it's so dangerous from white. So what I did instead was bishop takes e2, which, as you can see, is a mistake. According to the engine, bishop to c3. I wanted to immediately block those pawns, prevent them from going forward. The rook d3 has been played to attack me, rook to c8, rook e to e3, once again attacking it, and my idea was to control this diagonal, because as long as I control it, the pawns can't go forward. So c3 has been played to attack my bishop, but it gives me an additional check. Rook g6 check, and now you can't really block it with your rook because I'm going to exchange it and take the c3 pawn. So my opponent played king to h3, but now I'm playing bishop d6, so I'm kind of winning a tempo here because the rook step away with a check and bishop is controlling the d6 square now. c4 has been played, king to g7, going forward with my king, bringing it, rook to f3, and now rook to g5. And suddenly it's not pleasant for the king. The king has literally no moves, the h2 pawn is in trouble, and the strategy to put the pressure on your opponent is working perfectly here, because it's very difficult in a practical game. Like, the engine doesn't care, it just says, well, it's minus 0.5, basically just a draw. But in a practical game, when you face all of those threats, it's very, very tough. So he played rook to d2 to defend the h2 pawn. Now I'm bringing another rook because it's basically doing nothing on the c file, so I want to bring it somewhere here and then basically create some checkmating ideas. So rook to g2 has been played. My opponent thought that if he manages to exchange one pair of rooks, it's going to be much simpler for him. And I'm saying, okay, well, I can't deal with that, but if you want to exchange the rooks, then I'm going to have this g pawn, and then it's going to go forward. It might be very active, and so that was my hope. My opponent played rook c3, realizing that, and now king f6, I'm just bringing the king forward, and I'm stepping back from the pin, so now my rook is free to go. Rook takes g5, pawn takes, and c5. And here is the key moment. I played bishop to e5, rook to d3, just preparing to push the pawn forward, but rook to e2, creating some incredible threats for the king. And my opponent didn't really realize it. He thought that the only threat is rook takes h2, winning the pawn with a check, so he played the move d6. Now try to pause the video for a second and find the winning blow here for black. Okay, I hope you found it. So it's the move king to f5, now threatening the checkmate, and there is no way to stop it. I mean, the king has nowhere to go. My opponent played rook to f3, but now just bishop to f4, and the problem is, if you take it and you try to somehow promote your pawns, for example, if pawn takes, then there is d7, and well, you might claim that the pawns are very, very strong, but I can just take with the king, and then once you play d7, g4, king h4, and rook h2, checkmate. My opponent played here rook to g3, but still the problem is the move g4. Now if you take it with a rook, then rook takes h2, checkmate. If you play king to h4, then just, yeah, the same thing, and it's a checkmate. So I hope you found this video instructive. Let me know in the comments what you think about this type of videos. And in this one, I reveal the unspoken strategy to beat your opponents at chess, so definitely take a look at it.